ever get one of these nice shirts?
I did. Yeah, Carolyn dropped one off to my house, and I told her I was sorry I wasn't gonna be able to go
Hey,
do
that was pretty cool.
the flag.
That was fun.
We were in Vernal.
You and Vernal. Steve was there, and Renee, and Sharon.
Yeah.
That
Good.
was kind of cool. I liked it.
Yeah. How many people did it take to move it along?
Yeah.
We probably didn't need all 30, but there were probably 30.
Not that many people.
Isn't there something you can eat and it offsets that doesn't show? Be careful, we're not that long, but boy, it must be hot.
Are we ready? Like we got 4 of us, so we can start. Oh, great.
So just remember to talk in your microphone so she can hear it.
Okay, we'd like to welcome you to our Planning Commission meeting of August 9th, 2022. This meeting is being recorded. Let me get to my... We'll start by a opening prayer by Commissioner Callis, and then Commissioner Marchbanks will lead us in the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we bow our heads before Thee as we gather this evening in this Lindon City Planning Commission meeting. We're thankful for the opportunity to be here tonight and to discuss ideas and prospects and proposals put before this commission tonight. We pray that as we consider and ponder the decisions that we make tonight, that it will be done with wisdom, with thought and consideration, and for decisions will be in the best interests of the city and the residents of this beautiful city. We're thankful for our city. We're thankful for its leaders, and we're thankful for the nice environment and the place to reside and raise our families. We pray that all will be well with those that are not here tonight, and that all will go well in this meeting. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Would all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start tonight with an audible roll call. Sharon Call.
Here,
She's here online, and we're grateful for her.
yes.
Mike Marchbanks.
Here.
Rob Callis.
Here.
Steve Johnson here. Scott Thompson is currently not. Whether he'll be here, I think he said he was going to be gone on his trip, so I think he's excused. Jared Showers.
Here.
Renee Tribe.
Here.
The next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes. The commissioners have received those minutes from our last meeting and had a chance to review them, or is there any corrections that anybody sees to the minutes?
I didn't see any.
I noticed one, I think, Kathy. Let me. On the motion on the first item, there's a roll call vote, and Commissioner Call is not listed.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
It passed unanimously, but I think her name was left off the list.
Thank you. Thank you for finding that.
Are there any other corrections to the minutes? If not, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. The motion carried unanimously. Our next item on our agenda is a time for public comment. This is a time for anyone that's here for any item that's not on the agenda that would like to address the commission, they may. Is there anybody here that would like to take advantage of the public comment time? Okay. We will move on to item number 4, which is a conditional use permit for the box. Our applicant is Chantel Lawrence, and our presenting staff is Mary Barnes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Chantel, you can come take a seat just up here, if that's all right. So Chantel Lawrence, Miss Lawrence has applied for a conditional use permit for the box, which is a gym/athletic club on the west side of I-15 at 236 South, 1250 West, within the light industrial zone, which, because it's in that zone, it is a conditional use. The box is a specialty gym that focuses on boxing and weightlifting and has been in operation, but has recently applied for a business license and therefore a conditional use permit. Their hours are from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. The applicant is renting out a building within the Lindon Harbor Industrial Condominiums Complex and has a total of 12 parking stalls assigned to the unit, which fulfills the parking requirement, as you can see in the table on this page. In conclusion, there's not a lot to say here. We haven't received any complaints while the box has been in operation, with like traffic or anything. It doesn't seem to have any type of negative effect on the surrounding businesses, and we believe it will be a great addition to Lindon's business community. So the Planning Commission is the final land use authority on conditional use permits, and staff recommends approval with the conditions listed. Do you have any questions for Chantel or me?
How long have you been in business?
I've been in business for 7 years now, but not in Lindon, in Pleasant Grove.
So just recently come to Lindon?
Yes.
Great, welcome.
Yes, we were in Lindon in the past, operating out of Bobby Lawrence Karate, just behind Walmart.
Oh, right, yeah.
And
I saw
then
you there.
expanded and moved out into a facility in Pleasant Grove, and now we're in Lindon.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you've just been operating out of something that was already approved for a similar type use,
Correct.
and now you're wanting your own place and need a conditional use?
Yeah, I needed the conditional use permit. And our operating hours we end at 10 a.m. and then there's a block throughout the middle of the day that nobody's there because nobody likes to work out on their lunch break, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And you start back up at what, 4 or 5?
At 5.
5 till 7?
Yep.
Great.
That's the old, it was used as a crematory, wasn't it? Yeah.
Still burning bodies.
There's your
Just a
tagline.
little different twist.
We try not to tell people that, but yes.
A different kind of field to burn.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Okay, I don't see a problem with it.
Let's see, I just wanted to, see, can you review again the parking situation?
So, they have 12 parking stalls that are assigned to that specific unit. Chantel told me, or Ms. Lawrence, sorry. And under our parking requirements, we have different categories, and a gym would fit into the cultural, amusement, and recreation category, which allows 1 parking space per 3.5 person capacity in the building based on the maximum use of all the facilities. Anyway, it's in there. Ms. Lawrence gave me the occupancy of the building was 30, so 30 divided by 3.5 or 3.5 is 8.6, so at least 9 stalls are required.
There.
And they have 12, yeah.
Okay.
I just noticed that it was a condition that the staff recommended was parking. Is there a reason to think there could be an issue there, or is it just part of the typical?
I think because it's shared parking. If you remember about 2 years ago, we approved this as a commercial condominium project. And so they share the parking, and so if there's any issues, we city staff, depends on them to work that out.
So it's a staff issue. It's not a complaint-driven condition. Okay. Sharon, do you have any questions online?
I don't. No, that's great.
Okay. Any other comments or questions for the applicant? Okay. Is someone ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I move to approve the applicant's request for a conditional use permit to use the property located at 236 South, 1250 West for gymnasium/athletic club with the following conditions. Number one, customer parking will be limited to the designated stalls assigned to the building. And number two, all items of the staff report.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. The motion carried unanimously.
Great.
We're looking forward to your business in Lindon, and good luck.
Thank you.
Our next item on the agenda is item 5, which is a public, an ordinance amendment. So this is a public hearing, is that correct? So we will need to open a public hearing.
I move to open a public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So the applicant for this is Lindon City. The presenting staff is Mary Barnes, and this is a legislative action, so we will be recommending this to the city council.
Awesome, thank you. So I wanted to start this presentation by saying, because it can get kind of in the weeds a bit with the different terms for different types of lot lines, but I'm going to be using the word interior for like side and rear property lines, and then the word exterior for all the property lines that abut a street, so like a front property line or a side street setback, property line. So the applicant for this ordinance is Lindon City. Around every lot in Lindon City, there are public utility easements, you're probably aware. Currently, Lindon City Subdivision Code requires a 7.5-foot PUE, public utility easement, around all lot lines, interior and exterior. This is a kind of a blurry screenshot, but it shows it here on a recently approved residential plat, Aspen Ridge Plat B. This was approved last year in, I think, December, November. It has a 7.5 public utility easement on the side on these interior lots, except for this one part, but that's an anomaly. It doesn't usually happen in a traditional lot. However, in this Lindon City Development Manual, it requires a 10-foot public utility easement along exterior lot lines, which is actually, it's not called out here, but I don't know if you can, maybe this one's easier to see. It is a little bit, there's a bit of a larger space right here. That's a 10-foot public utility easement. So basically, this ordinance amendment, the first thing it's going to be doing is consolidating those two things and amending the subdivision code to match the development manual. Because I've talked to the engineers about this, collaborated closely with them, but most public utilities, if they're gonna go anywhere, they're gonna go along the exterior lot lines, along the street. And so having that larger space is the reason why that was put into the development manual in the first place. And so it's just, consolidating that with the Lindon City Code, so everything works great. The second thing that this ordinance amendment will do is reduce the PUE, this 7.5 public utility easement. It's in Title 1732.210. Reduce it from 7.5 to 5 feet for a total width of 10 feet across property lines. And there's a few reasons behind this. One of the main ones is how difficult it is for residents. I'll just say this right now, this amendment will mostly affect residential areas. It won't really affect commercial areas because, commercial areas are allowed to build within whatever PUE as long as they get the encroachment permit, whether it's 7.5 or 5 feet.
And typically, we don't require a side and rear easement on commercial properties. We mainly just require the easement along the front.
Exactly. So this is mainly for residential properties. I've been doing building permits here for about a year now, and at least every week there's someone who wants to build within their public utility easement. So we allow accessory buildings, structures that includes pools and like air conditioning units, that kind of thing. And garages, shops, anything. We allow them to be 5 feet away from the property line. But when a lot has a 7.5 foot setback, then they have to get that extra 2.5 feet vacated or get an encroachment permit from it's like 6 different utility companies, and that can take up to a month. And it's like I have like 2 people right now that are beyond frustrated at a particular utility company. If we made it a 5 foot public utility easement, it would really help residents,
Right.
kind of streamline what they want to get done with their property. Also, I talked to Noah about this. Noah is in Public Works Department. He's one of the people that people have to reach out to get a vacation permit, an encroachment permit. And by the way, he answers very quickly. So, anyways, he said in all his years like doing this, he's basically never, like maybe once or twice, basically never seen a utility line going through an interior, like next to an interior lot line. And there might be 1 or 2, but it's usually within the 5 feet. And I talked to Trent about this, who's our other engineer, and he told me that most cities are moving towards this 5 foot like minimum instead of the 7.5 feet or the 15 feet across property lines, including American Fork and Springville. They've moved to that. And if you look at, in Anderson Farms, the PUEs are 5 feet down there as well. Some of their setbacks are less than 7.5 feet. But anyways, basically, there's not a huge need for a 7.5 foot public utility easement along the interior lot lines of residential lots, and changing it to a 5 foot easement would not only help residents, it would just streamline the building permit process, reduce frustration. It just make everything a little bit easier to do. But any questions on
Well,
that?
even with a 5 foot easement, you've got 10 feet.
Yeah, exactly. You still have 10 feet across the
on each
property
side,
line.
Yeah. So the utility companies,
They can still,
they're usually okay with that?
yeah,
9 times out of 10, they don't even go down those side yards anyway.
Yeah, right.
it's true.
So this would apply to existing lots or lots going forward?
No, it's lots going forward.
Yeah, okay, so the people that have existing lots that want to build accessory structures still have to deal with getting
Yes.
permits with utility companies.
It's true.
Right.
But anybody from now on doesn't have to. And all the subdivisions from now on, they don't have to deal with that. I know it's kind of late in the game, but it's good to get done for the existing residential subdivisions that will occur in this city.
I'm good with it.
Makes sense.
The utility companies can be a pain in the butt, even when they don't have a utility there and they still have to vacate something that they're not even using. They're not motivated to. They're kind of like government. Yeah.
That would mean that they could build up to 5 feet from their property.
Yeah, and city code already permits up to 5 feet. It would just reduce the obstacles in their
Vacate,
way
yeah.
to get to that 5 foot.
Do they not consider a fence?
Oh,
You can put
a structure?
Yeah, you could put a fence there.
Yeah,
right?
I don't,
Usually it goes right on.
The property.
The property
right?
line.
But-
But that's not considered something with like a foundation.
yeah,
on it.
and it's not, you can more easily take down a fence if you need to, whereas if it's a garage or a pool, an underground pool, that would just be horrible to try to work around.
Okay.
Do I hear any more questions or comments from the commission? I'll give Sharon
It appears that the staff is recommending this.
Oh, yes, we are.
Sharon?
We came up with it, so, sorry.
Do you have any questions?
I don't, no.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so
good to listen to the discussion.
So this is a public hearing, or is there anybody here from the public that wants to address this issue? Okay, hearing no, probably advisable to close the public hearing and bring it up to the commission.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now that the public hearing is closed, is there any further comment by anyone on the commission?
I think this makes a lot of sense. I think it's a good move.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion. I move to recommend, let's see, wrong one here. I move to recommend approval of ordinance amendment 2022-9-0 as presented by staff with changes. With no changes. Right.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Okay. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carried unanimously. Okay, we're on to item number 6. This is also a ordinance amendment. So do I have a motion to open a public hearing?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're now in a public hearing. The applicant's left blank. Was this Lindon City also, or is it?
Oh, sorry about that. No, this is Enium.
Correct. Okay, and so if you want to come forward as the applicant, you may. And this is a legislative action which will require city council action, and our presenting staff is Mike Florence.
All right, thank you, commissioners. So the Enium Group, if you remember a couple weeks ago, you approved a subdivision plat for 700 North. The Enium Group is looking to develop, is it this second lot?
Yes.
Here. So their plans are to build a 5-story office building, and I'll let them, they can talk about that more in a minute. What they're proposing tonight is 2 ordinance amendments. The first one would be an amendment to the height requirements. So the current zoning, that Lindon Village zone, has a maximum height limit of 48 feet. And they want to go up to, is it 76 or 72 feet?
72.
72 feet. So what we're proposing on that north side of 700 North, that the height would be allowed to go up to 80 feet. So in our commercial general A zone, we currently allow that height of 80 feet. So the purpose in allowing it on the north side and not the south side is because of the industrial uses in Pleasant Grove. You know, this we feel could be a little more flexible on that north side. On the south side, you do have residential. If someone wants to come in with a taller building, then we'll go through this process again for the south side. But we feel for right now, we should take it slowly and just look at that north side. So that's the first amendment, would be to increase that height from 48 feet to 80 feet. Any questions on that?
And you went from 48 to 80, even though they're asking for 72?
Yeah, I just,
Just to make it consistent?
Match our A zone.
Okay.
yes.
For some reason, I thought, where is our A zone down there?
It is, if you give me just a minute,
For some reason, I thought
Pull it
down
up.
in that neck of the woods, we'd already. Is our A zone down on the other side of the freeway? Over where doTERRA built? I was thinking it was off the 700 North corridor we had A zone.
so it is, it's this property over here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
for
okay.
Mark Weldon.
Yeah, the Weldon piece there across from doTERRA.
Yep.
Okay. I have no problem with it.
So second item is, let me pull this up. So the current zoning, the way it's divided, the corridor's divided into 23 districts. And then you've got these smaller green districts. You've got 21 of these smaller green districts that are at full movement intersections. And so on those green areas, those 21 areas, you're required by this code to have a sales tax producing use. So, so it's divided into districts and then sub-districts. And that area, you're required to have a use, a sales tax producing use. So the NEM group, they, going on District 6, they're an office building, they don't provide sales tax. The ordinance says you can go through a waiver process by going through the Planning Commission and City Council. Staff wants us to look at this, or the NEM group is asking to have just that section removed, about requiring to produce sales tax. Staff does see some issues with this section in that it's arbitrary, and the state laws is forcing cities to get away from being arbitrary. So the way it's arbitrary is that through this waiver process. So this Planning Commission and City Council essentially could say yes to one person in that district, but in a different district you could say no. That doesn't give someone some good direction on how they're supposed to build in that area. It's very arbitrary, and you could say I want you, but I don't want this other use. And so the city staff is recommending that you either look at doing what NEM wants you to do and get rid of the sales tax production requirement, or we need to study that further. So
I got a question. Is NEM the end user of the office building? Yes.
Yes.
What do you guys do?
It's a finance company in the solar industry that's moving more into a technology company.
I just wondered if we were sure that down the road there wouldn't be possibly some tax-based component to somebody in that building.
We plan on.
You're gonna use the whole building?
Yeah, we at first, if we're trying to build it into a building that we can grow into, and so maybe the first year or two we might have other tenants.
Short-term leases.
Sure,
or something.
but we plan on filling the whole building with just our company and being there long term.
How many employees do you?
It's hard to guess right now, but depending on what year we're talking, because we're doubling every year, so I don't know what year to answer that question, but we suspect in 2 years from now to have around 80 to 100 employees in the building. And that could double every year if we stay on our same growth, so.
So much of what we've done along 700 East or 700 North is with the end goal to create sales tax revenue for the city. If we just eliminate that, isn't that a slippery slope? Or what does our city attorney think about that, leaving it in and giving exceptions, or what? I know
the way it's written right now, the city, my concern is as Mike was indicating, there's no standard or basis for it. There's no, typically when we are looking at exceptions, we establish what parameters would qualify for an exception. And there is a statement in our current ordinance that if we find it's in the best interest of the city, that's pretty broad and general. There's no parameters to define it. So I'm really concerned with the way that it's drafted. And honestly, as we have been watching the legislature and land use regulation over these last several years, this type of ordinance that is drafted solely for the purpose of generating revenue is really coming into disfavor with the legislature. And so, I mean, it's just certainly something that we think about, and it's appropriate that we think about, given that the services that we have to provide to this commercial area, what kind of tax base will be generated. That's certainly a consideration as we review individual projects and as a factor that we can consider. But to have it be the sole priority, you have to have revenue generating uses in these specifically identified sections. That's gonna tough for us to justify to the legislature. You know, we don't want to be a poster child for the next bill that is run up there on the hill. So
Well, we've
I
kinda
would
done
like
that.
us to, I think it would be better to take it out than to leave it as it is. And then maybe we can look into ways, you know, through the approval process to address those issues. But the way it is right now is a little concerning for me.
So our project here, just on the east side of State Street, where we did the commercial / condominium
Right.
housing, we did have that, where they had to have a certain percentage of commercial.
Of commercial, but not specifically
Not tax.
identified as sales tax generating.
Okay.
That's the distinction. It's clear that we have the right to regulate uses, but do we have the right to require what
Right.
what commercial use that is?
Right.
That,
So-
so that it generates sales tax. That's
Okay.
the concern.
So just thinking out loud here, could we end up just with office buildings and apartments?
And I think that was the concern from the very beginning, that you can't end up with just apartments because the current zoning doesn't allow apartments down there. The Lindon Village zone, it's prohibited. So if someone wants to come propose apartments, they've got to do a ordinance amendment. They've got to go through the same process. But you could end up with office. And as I talked to Mayor Lundberg, she had the same concern. She was like, well, that was our worry when we did our resident plan for that area, that all we would see is office uses coming in there. And she wanted, the plan at that time was to make sure we had enough retail use as well. And that's a balance. Typical zoning ordinance, like Brian was saying, just discusses the uses. It typically doesn't get into, you've got to provide sales tax. You have to show us, before we'll issue you a business license, you have to show us also you're creating sales tax. That's what this ordinance calls for, so.
So are we changing this just for the north side or for the south?
This would apply to the whole corridor.
Both.
Yes.
And I guess the way our ordinance is written, one thing let's say they had a restaurant in the bottom right now when they built it, and then 6 months from now it goes out of business for whatever reason, right? And they convert it.
What do you do?
Yeah, what do we do? I guess, legally, what do we do under that circumstance, right? I mean, I'm assuming that would be a very hard situation to say.
You can't rent out your bottom floor.
You can't rent out your
unless
bottom,
you
except
have
unless it's a restaurant. I can see the issues with it.
I think the way we see the corridor going and stuff, these first 3-4 lots that have been subdivided, those will, the training room, the one that'll be on the far west, they want to do a small restaurant in there. The other two would be office. But the way it's going, we're getting some of these proposals for residential. We don't allow residential. And so through the development agreement process, then we could look at being a little more strict, saying, okay, we're only going to allow some residential if you do this. And that's where we could have a little more
Leverage.
leverage. But yeah, we have the same concern about if this ends up all in office.
Could we address something that you haven't identified here? Just talk about it maybe? And that's setback, front setback. So in this proposed development, it would be 20 feet plus a foot for every, let's see, 1 additional foot of building setback for every 1 foot in height over 20.
Yeah,
So over 20, they're going to be 50 something,
only if it's next to residential.
only if it's next to residential.
Yes, so where they are just are backing up to Pleasant Grove's industrial, they have to just meet a 20-foot setback.
On the front.
All
I'm talking about front setback.
Oh, yeah, it's minimum, yes, 20.
And that, again, I'm kind of asking something while we're considering this. I've had reason to give thought to our front setback requirements. And gosh, 20 feet is not very much. Is that ever something that we could reconsider?
So we've got two parts. We got 20 feet here, and then our commercial design standards say that you've got to have 20 feet, and then you can have one row of parking. So you could have 20 feet, and then 18 feet for your stall, 24 feet for your drive aisle.
Okay,
And so you will have, what's that, 44, 52 feet?
52 feet.
I think we'd even like to look at that so someone could get 2 rows of parking. Because
Right.
it's not very design, it's expensive just to do 24 feet of drive aisle with 1 row of parking.
Yeah.
I think as we do our commercial design standards, we're gonna look at that again.
Okay, I think that's worth looking at.
Yeah.
What about residential? I'm shifting gears here. Can we look at that too? Right, our residential says what, 20 foot?
For a single family home,
Mm-hmm.
minimum 30.
Minimum 30,
Uh-huh.
okay, good,
So commercial and industrial are 20, residential 30.
okay, good. Okay, back to the subject now here.
Yeah, let me show you that. It's right. Oh, we don't have residential in here.
No.
But yeah, it's 20 in the commercial general, commercial A, A8, CGS, PC1, PC2.
We don't have anything less than 30 unless it's like Ivory project.
Right.
Plan unit.
The townhomes for Lindon Nursery and the Norton property, we allowed 25.
Okay, thank you.
Mike is the real estate agent for the property. He can probably talk a little bit about the commercial uses too that he's seeing in the area.
I can kind of give you guys an idea of where we're going with this at the moment. We've got lots 1, 2, and 3 currently completely under contract. These guys are on lot number 2. We have we'll say an upscale gym. It's a training facility on lot number 1. There is some retail tax generated by that. On lot number 3, that is Everlights. They are a sales tax generating. And then, of course, we've had a lot of activity on what we're going to call lots 4 and 5 at the moment. And the way I see this, as you get more retail or more businesses that have people in them on the property, it begets more retail or more businesses that want people there. On lot number 4, we have, and we've been working back and forth since the last meeting that we were at. I think we've got all the terms figured out for our contract on lot number 4, and that's a hotel. That's actually 2 hotels. And then on lot number 5, they've gone from wanting 4 acres to 5 acres to 6 acres, and now they're taking everything from the eastern boundary of lot 4 all the way to Anderson Boulevard, which is just under 9 acres. And that's a group that has the ability to do some retail, and their plan is to do some retail. They actually already have a restaurant in the valley. The mayor is good friends with the group that's actually doing that, and I've talked to her about that. They want to do a regional sports facility at the back end of the property. It's a very large building, and it will have a regional draw for teams, whether they be high school, college, or even some pro athletes. It'll have a big draw for that. They planned on doing a small retail element in front, and then they decided to go to, the remainder that we had up to Anderson Boulevard. Of course, they got them one of the hard corners, and also maybe another restaurant padded behind that. So we'll have most likely two restaurants in that area right there, which to me tells me that I'm going to have another restaurant on that other hard corner and maybe another one in behind that fairly easily. I'm actually in discussions with the sellers right now to put together a development plan for that eastern 12 acres that's remaining. And I was going to kind of stay with that idea that Mike had with those corners, because they do create a semi-hard corner. And now with as much as we have from, we'll call it Anderson Boulevard to the western edge of this property, I think we actually have the good timing to maybe put in some maybe other retail type stuff there. And that's kind of what I'm going for, especially, retail obviously brings the best dollar per square foot, as far as sales. So we're looking at trying to leverage what we've got on the eastern edge, and that's what we've needed this entire time, is something to go vertical on this site to break the cycle of what we've been dealing with for like the last 5.5 years. I've been actually on this since January of 17. So it's been quite a while, and of course, we've been, working the path of, of growth and everything, and of course, with everything going on PG Boulevard, we have increased the traffic up and down 700 North, so every time that increases a little bit, people take a little more time to pay attention to this. We do have a traffic light on Anderson Boulevard planned as soon as it's needed, and that is a requirement from so many of the restaurant groups around here. I mean, you can call any one of them. Mike is, I'm sure he's already done that. And they like a traffic light. They want traffic to stop so they can actually stop there and see what's actually going on. And of course, everything we're doing on this north side is just going to translate to what happens with Jeremy on the south side. And I am staying in really good contact with the developers on the south side. We're trying to work hand in hand on this to try to get the right people on this site. Because it's important to our sellers, it's important to the city, and I just see as more of this goes in, I mean, it just generates. I mean, look what happened with Pleasant Grove Boulevard. It didn't start with all this at one time. You had this come in, and then all of a sudden, oh, wow, that went in. Oh, this is, well, we want it to be there. We want it to be there. We want it to be there. So hopefully they'll get their traffic situation figured out soon.
Mike, can you show the district map up there on the screen? So that, are you talking about lots, can you make it bigger? Are you talking
Mike, could you bring
4,
up?
6, and 8?
do you
Is that
have-
the districts you're dealing
Do you
with?
have any of the lot plans, our plat, that we've submitted? It might be easier to look at that than this, because this is very vague.
Yeah, because I wasn't quite mapping what your east-west
Yeah.
distance was.
Well, this project is Lot 2, right?
These guys are lot 2. We have a 5-acre lot on the western edge, then a 4-acre lot with these gentlemen, and then of course another 4-acre lot on lot 3. Lot number 4 is 4.11 acres, and then lot 5 has grown to 8.76, something.
This is all I have here, Mike.
Okay, and that's fine. I mean, we can work with that. That's showing our cross using in the front, and of course, we all know we're gonna do a site plan that allows some traffic to cross over in the back. Where that scale is lot 4, and then to the right of that will be lot 5, and that takes us to where Anderson Boulevard comes in. Are you familiar with Anderson Boulevard? Okay, good.
If I can make one comment on Lot 2, where it says Office A and Office B, that was a first rendering before we knew the possibility of being able to go higher.
It'd be just one building, right?
Yeah, and so we have since transitioned, we've actually, I might have shared them with you, Mike, the one lot design we have, where it pushes the building back, adds more parking around it, and it increases the footprint of the building and the height.
It looks more like that one to the left.
Looks more like the one to the left.
So just from what you just said, I'm thinking almost everything you mentioned, other than this building, has some type of sales tax generating.
every
You know,
single
the
thing.
hotel does, and so I think it attracts sales tax by what we're doing here on the corridor, just by,
Makes the restaurants feel more comfortable having.
Yeah, well, you have all those workers, and it shows momentum,
Thousands of
right? It shows momentum, and then other people are like, oh, we want to be a part of this, whether it's a restaurant or retail, to have all that adjacent.
The group that's on lot 5, their restaurant is more of a dinner type restaurant, which is what I'm gonna try to focus on. We have a lot of nice lunch restaurants around in this area now. It's not a lot, but there's a few, and of course, all of them struggle for a dinner traffic. But if we can put in something that's more of a dinner style restaurant and create that traffic. I went out last week, 45-minute wait to get into Sol Agave. And that's what they
Yeah.
told, yeah, I mean, it's like, are you
Because they have
kidding?
good food.
It was good.
I mean, Yeah.
Was it that good?
yeah, it may not be
You
worth
know?
the 45.
But you know, it's anywhere you go, and that was a Thursday night.
Wow.
That wasn't Friday, that was Thursday night. So,
We, as Mike has shared with us, it's just been a long time coming where it's been dirt and people have been trying to bring ideas, and what we're just so excited about is being able to bring a gorgeous office building, and we want to work hand in hand with the city, with Mike and the design, and bring to you our ideas and build a world-class building that we can be proud of, workers can be proud of, Lindon City can be proud of, and we want to be easy to work with. We think if we can have your buy-in and support, and we're just eager to work with you and build something, and we can be that first one up. And we can bring the workers, which will then want to bring other business owners and developers and come put money in the project in the corridor. If we can get out the gate, we're a big, strong racehorse ready to go.
So Brian, a question on, if we're gonna eliminate the sales tax, I haven't even thought through this, but what if we like put some incentive for a sales tax on it versus a requirement?
Yeah, I would think that could work if we drafted it the right way. That the most important thing is we set up the parameters for when we either grant the incentive or when we grant the waiver if we keep the requirement. I will note that incentives, programs, we have to be very careful under the new legislature that we're not allowed to give them tax incentives for bringing in certain things unless there's a residential component to it. So there's some things that we'll have to be very careful if we're looking at those types of incentives as to what we're doing. But density, those types of incentives might work, but a tax rebate incentive, we don't want to, we're not going to be able to go down that road too much.
This one's in an old RDA area.
Oh, so we could use that.
Yeah, this
Okay.
one you can because it's in a 2016
RDA.
RDA.
Okay.
Perfect.
So we could do something like that, or like Mike
Right.
said, part of an agreement, if we're gonna let some housing go in, that they'd have to
Right.
also put some type of retail or restaurant
At
or
the
something.
moment, I don't have any requests for housing.
That's,
That buyer withdrew. He had
So-
bigger projects elsewhere.
yeah, I really like the proposals you have, for those things. I think they're great. Well, it's a public hearing, but I don't see any other public. Any other questions?
Yeah, we still need to open it for a public hearing when,
We've
Or
already,
did we?
we're in the public hearing, so
okay.
we opened it at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. So, any other questions before we close the public hearing for the applicant or for city staff? And Sharon, we'll give you a chance. Do you have anything that you'd like to ask? Guess not, so,
I don't.
okay. Okay. If there's nothing else, is there?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we'll bring it up here to the commission for any further discussion. What's our general feeling or thought on this?
Can we rewrite the ordinance that is less arbitrary and just makes the exceptions more clear? And perhaps one of the exceptions would be to try to accommodate these people, but I think just to change it and get rid of it is a slippery slope, could be problematic. I mean, in light of all that he said, which sounds exciting, Mike, and that could be totally different. He could have totally different buyers.
If a buyer, am I okay to talk?
Yes, you're the applicant, so we're, so,
If a buyer came to the table for an office, which honestly, unless it's an end user like these gentlemen, we're not seeing a lot of that. In fact, the buyer that was on the eastern boundary is a very well-known developer, and he does a lot of office. He's told me, he goes, I'm not doing office. He goes, there's just way too much square footage for office right now. You're probably not gonna see any desire for anybody to build a specific office building unless it's for an end user.
Purpose
And that
built.
makes sense, and I said, well, the gentlemen, in fact, the two that we do have going in are both end users.
Right, makes sense. Just
So-
because too many people are working at home and they're not needing all the square footage that they had in the past.
On the square footage, I work
Yeah.
over in North Point, just on the other side of the freeway, and of course, we have thousands and thousands of square footage
Right.
over there that's vacant. Our building is about 2/3 empty right now.
Interesting, yeah.
so I guess Jared, what what do you think that would look like? Or what are you thinking for a discussion point for the commission?
I don't know how to write that. I think it is good that they are end users. I don't know if that has anything to, probably doesn't have any way to write that into the ordinance or anything like that, but maybe if it's over, the building's over a certain size or something like that, or single-use buildings could have an exception. I don't know what it would look like. I'm just saying, instead of totally eliminating that possibility, just making it clearer.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have the expertise to write that. That's Mike and our
At the
attorney.
moment,
but-
I'm almost thinking a waiver, a specific waiver, but of course your attorney's here and he doesn't really support that. That's really all we're looking for is,
We have to set parameters for when that, if we just have the blanket, it can be waived,
Yeah,
then we don't have any parameters.
and
So-
that's what I'm saying. You put the parameters in there
Right.
that may accommodate these guys based on something that makes sense for the city.
can we address their situation and then the remainder of the development? Because really have about 12 acres left. You know, we have all the terms agreed to for the other 2 lots. My expectation is to have them under contract before the end of the week. Now, whether they close or not, obviously is dependent upon how things go between them and the city and all that. So anything can happen there. But obviously, you guys are incentivized to work with these particular groups to try to get some good uses on this property, especially when we know that the south side is depending upon what happens on the north at the moment. But yeah, I mean, a waiver for them, just so they can continue to move forward and get their thing done, would be, I mean, that would be.
But it has to be a waiver based on something.
Right, if
that
we
they're.
came in, we would need to articulate very clearly,
Yeah.
not just the general statement that this isn't the benefit of the city, but we have to identify why this would benefit the city to waive these taxes. And we need to, even though the ordinance doesn't currently set those parameters, if we took a detailed enough approach to it to identify specific benefits that makes this unique and distinguishable from other potential uses, we could probably draft findings of facts and conclusions of law that would allow us to withstand a challenge. And when we grant the exception, we're not going to get challenged here. My concern is when we deny the exception, you know, somebody
Yeah,
else is
so-
gonna come in and say, look, you granted it in that circumstance. So we need to identify very specific reasons why we believe it's in this interest of the city, so that we could, and how it's distinguishable from other, you know, general uses.
I like the idea of removing the hurdles,
Yeah.
The other,
simplifying it, because then I think you run into, people are looking at you sideways because you waived this group and not that group, and so I do think it becomes too intricate.
or the other thing you do is, you know, their District 6B, you remove the sales tax requirement from that district. You know, but then, you
And
know,
leave it
you may
on?
you may require that of 10 other people to come in and amend this map, so.
Well, if we were to do something like Jared is proposing, you're gonna need some time.
Right.
And so that means we couldn't proceed tonight.
You could make a
Unless we give
recommendation
the
on the,
exception for this district.
you could make a recommendation that you move this forward and on the 80-foot requirement, so their architects could start working on their building, and,
See, I
you know,
think we should at least do that in the, this shows you what we've discussed
Yeah.
before. It takes Class A type office to bring the restaurants and the other things. The height requirement is almost imperative that we do that in order to get the opportunity to get some Class A
Put your
office.
place put this location on the map.
Right.
Make people actually take notice when they're driving down that corridor. Give them something to look at.
So and I have based on what the council has said, I have no problem personally with doing away
or
with
you could move it all forward with the recommendation that staff work out a waiver requirement and present that to the city council.
Yeah, that's what I was
I
gonna
like
recommend, is that you recommend that the council consider it if they articulate a sufficient basis, that would meet.
Yeah, I like that, Because we need to move it on to them,
I
and
agree.
because
Yeah,
I'm totally fine with it.
I think there just ought to be some more thought into that, and that gives us that opportunity to do that.
Right, and it doesn't tie their hands.
Right.
What we're saying is everybody wants this, we just gotta figure out how it looks, what it looks like.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't think we have any problem with this building or this project. It's,
Yeah, I don't
it's the long-term effect, right? Even right now, the market's not such that office will come in. But if the property doesn't sell for 3 or 4 years, who knows what the market will be? I mean, or 10 years.
And the way things have been going on this, it's like trying to keep, I'm gonna try to keep this whole development a secret, which means by tomorrow afternoon, everybody in the whole valley's gonna know about it.
Yeah. So,
So
Okay.
the more I put under contract, the more requests I get for the rest of it. And if I can do commercial, retail kind of stuff, all the way to the eastern boundary, I'm thinking 4, 5, 6 acre lots all the way to the remainder, and I really only have 12 acres left. And I would like to stay away from, personally, I'd like to stay away from any kind of residential element, because it's just such a, I don't know even what the right word.
Well, I think we do too.
Yeah.
so,
Well, let's do that.
are we good with that? Any other comments, or are we ready for someone to make a motion with that?
So, Steve,
Uh-huh.
I think I'm okay with that, except that I think the council will have some concerns on the second part of this. I think they're gonna want that reworked.
Well, and that's the point of moving it on to them, to get it reworked, have the staff
Have
work with
staff
them to get it reworked.
But usually they will want us to have it reworked before it gets to them.
Is it gonna come back to us, Mike, or what?
No.
If you continue it, yes, it would come back to you. If you move it forward with the recommendation that city staff, rework that exception requirement, then we could just move it forward.
That's what I'd like to see.
Me too.
And I guess one other thought is if it moves forward, but with a recommendation that staff looks at it, if it's feasible to bring it back and add a requirement.
I mean, you do have one more planning commission, no, the planning commission, it could go to city council on Monday.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we have enough time to.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we have
No,
enough time.
so you actually, so you actually would have another planning commission meeting before the September 19th city council meeting. I think
So we
that's,
could continue that.
Well, so I guess if it
second
doesn't slow it down, I don't
and
mind
get-
us
get
looking
that
at it. I mean,
reworked
if
before-
there's no way to get it on the agenda till the 19th, but that seems like a long time to make someone wait. If it has to wait that long.
we can't write all these exceptions tonight in order to have a staff
Right.
report to the
No.
council at 9 AM in the morning.
Right, but don't they
And
meet the
so-
first? Oh,
That's Labor Day weekend.
That's Labor Day.
So we can't even get this on the council agenda till the 19th of September, so you could see this again on the 12th. We could have something for you to review by then.
That would be what I would suggest, is that as long as we're gonna meet again before the city council meeting, that we have a chance to show that we've made some effort in reworking that before it comes to them, rather than shifting that completely to them to rework.
Also, I'd like to hear from the applicant what that does to their plans or all
Right.
that.
Because I don't know the process of the exceptions and how that all works, we as the buyer are unable to close until the sales tax portion is not applicable to our parcel. What is the process, or are we able to get an exception for only our parcel on that sales tax use?
Yeah, the way it's currently written, there is the process to allow you to get an exception on your parcel without having to amend the whole ordinance. But I would strongly recommend to the council only to do that once they've established a clear finding, set of facts establishing why this parcel, granting the exception, is a benefit to the city and how it differs from other parcels along the corridor.
But it
So
seems like-
that's what we need to sit down with you and with the planning department and come up with those facts that that really justify that.
Even if we were able to give you the exception tonight, you're not going to be able to get it approved by the city council until the 19th, was
The
it?
19th, yeah.
Of August.
September.
Unless we just,
Do
unless we
they
just.
have a
rec-
meeting next week, city council,
If they
next
do-
Monday?
Yeah, if you went with just the recommendation to strike it all, we're ready to take it tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So I guess that's the
But-
question. Do we
Yeah,
do the recommendation with
I'm
a
still
rec,
in favor of that.
with the
doing
recommendation saying, we want staff to look at, if it's feasible, with our council to see if we should add something back in at a later date? That would allow them to go forward, but I don't know if that's, I mean, that's saying that we recommend just to take it away for now.
Take it away for these guys. And
That would be my recommendation from a legal basis. It just makes it cleaner.
Yes,
It creates a lot of work and a lot of stuff, so from a legal basis, that would be my recommendation. But you guys are the policymakers, and it can be done legally. We can make it work if that's what you guys decide, but I think it would just be cleaner if we just, remove that, talking with Adam and his meetings with other administrators up at the league. He kind of feels the same way. I'll represent that to the commission, that it, it's just cleaner. And so that's why we're recommending that, but whatever you guys direct us to do, we can make it work.
Okay, so let me just clarify, make sure, I'm gonna sum up for the council, or the commission for, I think our attorney says that he recommends that we just go as it's written and remove the sales tax. That's what our attorney has asked, but,
I have no problem.
yeah, I like that.
for this parcel.
no, for the complete project.
to revisit it.
Yeah,
I think this is for the complete project, Rob.
Yeah,
Am I
that-
correct?
It is for the.
Okay.
It would be for the complete project.
But we need to tell the council that we're doing this with the idea that we will review, so they don't think we're
Rework.
just, rework it.
After the fact.
I don't know if we can make that,
Then
That
our
would be
thoughts are-
completely
we're not
wonderful for us, because we are both in a holding pattern where we're ready to close, we have all the financing lined up, and we're only waiting on these two things, the height requirement and the sales tax use, to be able to close. And the benefit to the city, from my point of view, and the seller, is as soon as we close, that's the big domino.
Yes,
And then
it's
they
the
can- They
momentum,
can go
like
to
I
tell
s-
everyone else,
yes,
hey, we
it's
got
the
this
momentum and the
five-story
progress.
Class A, tens of $1 million office building going in with lots of people coming in, people that want to live here and work here. And it makes the selling point for everyone else, and gives you the opportunity to rework that ordinance with more specific parameters.
And I'm fine with that. I mean, really, we've got that 12 acres, we could even figure out a way to do an ordinance on that. I think by the time we get to where when they're breaking ground, that's gonna start, like you said, the momentum.
I'd like to hear the motion, so I make sure I understand what we're doing.
Give Brian and I 1 second just to discuss.
Mike's showing me a section of the code that I hadn't looked at as closely, because he's wondering if we can maybe.
Here's the sales tax section, and then it refers down to
To
this.
this district.
Add sales tax production corners. So it's related.
Right.
The way we noticed it was removing just the sales tax portion, but that's related to this.
That might work.
I can pull up the notice if you want.
So what Mike's recommending, and I think this might work, is that we move to, to amend the map to remove that, the designation off of this section. And I'm just double checking to make sure that.
Let's see, maybe I wonder if I was too specific. 0.25. No,
No,
it's part of that.
it's part of the notice, okay. I was just wondering if we had given adequate notice to refine the motion to just remove the sales tax as it applies to this, and basically we would be amending the map that is referenced in the code section. And that would work. We have given proper notice. If the council wanted to the commission wanted to make that recommendation to the council, that's something that we could do.
That is specific
That
to
is
this lot.
specific to this, what was the lot again?
It was
Lot two.
It was B, yeah, 6B.
6B.
And then we could continue to work on this.
For the other areas and and establish some of those parameters.
Okay.
So basically, we would be amending the map. We have, because there are parcels on there that there's not a sales tax designated area, right? Mike?
Parcel 2, I think, has no sales tax, and
And
parcel 16.
Right, so we have parcels, we have a
21.
precedence for parcels without that corner designated area,
Yeah, 21.
In 21, yeah.
yeah.
We have
So-
one.
So Mike, I think that might work if.
1 and 2, I guess.
Well, one,
Or 21 and 2.
Good.
21, 2, and
16.
16.
16, because it was already built by the time
Yeah.
this map came out. Yeah.
I would feel comfortable with that, if the.
I mean, even that, we're not putting one on
Like that
20,
approach.
on that one corner.
I do
And then
too.
we will continue to work on that section and bring it back to you.
Yeah, if the city feels that that's still something that legally might need to be refined, then we can work on refining that, when we have time to not hold up an applicant.
Thank you.
So with that amendment, is there any other discussion with the council? How would you recommend that we put that in the motion, Mike?
I would just say that you recommend approval of ordinance amendment 2022-11-0 with the recommendation to remove the sales tax requirement from District B and approve the 80-foot and recommend approval of the 80-foot
Okay,
height
'cause-
increase
okay. Because it won't be as presented, it'll be as modified with
as
that.
modified, yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, do we
Now,
have
I
some-
like that a lot better. I feel a lot more comfortable with that than
Just a blanket
remo-
dropping of the sales
removing
tax.
that part completely without reworking it with the commission.
Okay, well,
So I'm fine with that as far as specific to that
okay.
parcel.
Well, thank you to staff and council for coming up with that solution for us. Do we have someone that will make a motion as indicated?
I'll make it. I move to recommend to approve ordinance and amendment 2022-11-0 with the change of an 80-foot height
On the north side of
on the
7
north side. Additionally, removing the sales tax requirement for District B like boy.
I second that.
We have a motion. A second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion is carried unanimously. It'll go to the city council hopefully Monday.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Exciting.
much. Gary, he's the CEO of Enium.
Oh, great. Thank you for coming. Good luck to you.
okay, we're on to item 7 of the staff report, which is a general plan amendment. And this, I'm assuming this also requires a public
you.
hearing, Mike?
It does.
Okay, so this will require a public hearing. Do we have a motion to open a public hearing?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Aye. Yeah.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carried unanimously. This is a general plan amendment concerning moderate income housing plan. The applicant is Lindon City, and our presenting staff is Michael Florence.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. So this evening, previously we've talked about amending the moderate income housing plan. We've talked about it with our general plan committee a couple different times. And so the state legislature passed House Bill 462 last year that required us to update our strategies that we adopted in 2019. The legislature now requires that we have a benchmark and implementation plan. They reworded some of those strategies. We now have to report how we're going to implement these strategies each year. So this has to be adopted by October 1st. I'm asking tonight if whatever direction we go, if we can at least make a recommendation to the city council with any changes or modifications as we go through this. I want to go through a couple things really quick. Everything in red are the items I changed. I updated all the charts and graphs in it. I kind of wanted to start with growth patterns. So I thought these were some interesting statistics from from the Kim C. Gardner Institute. They're kind of the go-to group right now for population and housing research. So I thought some of these 3 bullet points were interesting. So projected growth in Utah results in the population increase from 3.2 million in 2020 to 5.4 million in 2060, which is a 66% increase. The anticipated timing for reaching 4 million residents is 2032 and 2033, and 5 million residents between 2050 and 2051. That's amazing. And a lot of that is our own children and probably California. So I'm being facetious, but it seems like everybody moves here from California. So it says Salt Lake County to remain the largest county. Utah County is close behind at 1.3 million residents by 2060. Utah County experiences the most population growth. Over 30% of statewide projected population growth comes from Utah's second largest county, gaining the most residents between 2020 and 2060. So gaining approximately 673,000 residents. So couple other items. Our current population, the census shows it at 11,709. I calculate a little bit higher using building permit data and people per household. I calculate that at about 12,545 right now. You can see our population growth. For you that have been here a long time, between 1990 and 2000, that must have been a crazy time in Lindon for housing growth. We increased from less than 4,000 units to 8,000 units in that 10-year period. So, a couple things I thought was interesting. I posted 2010, 2017, and 2020 average age. This looks like those under 5 were down quite a bit. We're down 37% from between 2010 and 2020. We're higher in our 20 to 24 year age. So that kind of shows you where we're up and down a little bit on our demographics in the last 10-year period. Let's see. This is pretty typical statewide. Is the average household size is going down. Lindon in the 2010 census was at 3.97. We're down to 3.76. That's pretty typical. This shows our housing growth. Our population growth again. Jumping back to that, we're in 2020, I calculated we were at 12,135. This shows 2050 at 13,719. We're already almost hitting the 2030 mark. And so while these are Mountain Land Association of Governments forecasting, I think we're already ahead of that. We plan on probably our max population is in our current general plan says somewhere between 15 and 17,000 is our build out. Income trends. Oh, let's see, my screen froze. Uh-oh.
I believe we'll hit the build out in no more than 15 years.
Yeah. Our household incomes, you can see the majority of those are between, 100,000 or 50 to 74,000 up to 100 to 150,000. That's kind of our main average income. Average incomes over the last 10 years went up quite a bit. You know, Lindon's went up from 62,000 to 94,000 for our average income. You can see the state and county and the United States where they're at on those. Where we,
Who puts out this data?
this is from the census data.
I can't believe Highland's got a higher income than Alpine.
So, yeah, we're number 5 in in northern Utah County. I didn't do the whole county, but,
Yeah.
you know, in the northern part of the Utah County, Mapleton's probably up there with Alpine and Cedar Hills. So you can kind of see where we sit in that area. So moderate income, so let's talk about that for a few minutes. The county median income that we base all of our housing data off of is the median income for the county is $77,057. And so if you look at this, here's the household sizes and median incomes for those household sizes. So, you know, the median income in the county for a family of 4 is $91,000. That the legislature requires us to look at 80% of the area median income, so that's the county median income, 50% and 30%. So you can see if a family of 4 at the moderate income levels, the 80% makes an average of $73,000 a year. Let's see. Some of these are interesting, and you know, you guys live this, know about this information. So from second quarter 2020 to 2021, there was a 29% increase in home prices. You can see the average home price in Utah right now is about $460,000. Oh, sorry, this keeps freezing on me.
You could try the online version.
Yeah, let me go to that really quick. Okay. And then those are for single-family homes, townhomes, they're almost $350,000 for the average price. So if you take that 80% median income for Utah County, so that's $73,000. The recommendation is that you don't spend more than 30% of your income on housing. That gives you a monthly payment of about $1,834, including utilities, mortgage insurance, rental insurance, anything like that. So that's what this does. This breaks down a family of 4 in Utah County, and so you know, $22,000 a year in housing, $1,800 a month. So let's see, this next section goes through how many housing units we have. We have approximately 3,271 housing units, about 504 rentals. That's broken down between the senior apartments, Spring Gardens, the Grove Creek and Creekside retirement communities, anything that's multifamily. We have 243 accessory apartments. Since 2012, we've added, and so in the last 10 years, we've added 934 residential units in Lindon. You can see from this chart, you know, in 2019, that's when Ivory Homes Townhomes came on board, and since then, it's mostly been single-family homes. This 22 is the Tilia Court, the townhomes behind Lindon Nursery. We just released a few of those permits last week. let's see, we have about 700 units of available housing, or entitled housing, I should say, right now. So these are all the projects that still have lots available. Anderson Farms Plat E, they've probably built 45 or 50 of those homes already. But I just put, since that phase isn't complete, I just added how many units are in that phase. So number of affordable units, so not counting our accessory apartments, because we don't know what those are being rented at. The state has us just at 3 units of low income or tax credit type properties in Lindon that are dedicated solely for affordable housing. Let's see, the Salt Lake Tribune, the second quarter of each year, they keep track. They've done this since, I think, 2002, what the average home price is and how it goes up for each community in the state. You can see Lindon in 2018 was at 402,000. We're now up to about 775,000. I did a quick review. One of the recommendations from the state in putting this report together is they want you to look at how many properties are for sale in your community right now. So Zillow had 11 properties, Realtor.com had 18. Those ranged in price from, $400,000 to $2.6 million. So currently with those 18 properties, the average home price right now in Lindon is about $927,000. Now, we have to be careful of that number though, because that doesn't count anything that Ivory's doing. They're not putting theirs on Realtor.com or Zillow. They have their own team that's selling their lots. So that's what you can see what Ivory is currently renting their townhomes for. They're between basically $2,000 and $2,400 a month down there. So this is my last thing I want to talk about, then we'll go into the strategies. I thought this was really interesting. So if you have a mortgage, the different numbers here show how many are paying more than 30% of their mortgage to housing. So those that have in 2017, those that had a mortgage of $20,000, 143 of the 195 were paying more than 30% in housing. You can see how that trend is in those other years. For 2020, we have less people with those mortgage amounts, but for the first 3 categories, all of them are paying more than 30% of their housing, their mortgages or their income to housing, which, you know, then you can't afford other things. You know, you're then struggling with fuel, and you're struggling with food and things like that when you're paying more than 30% on housing. So I want to go back up to the top real quick and just go through these strategies. So the state requires that you pick 3 strategies. We chose 5. If you pick 5, then you get prioritization for transportation funds. So if it's a state road and you're looking at capacity increases, so let's say you wanted to, like Vineyard Connector at some point, or BRT, or, you know, on 700 North, or even trails, that gets into even trails. So if you want to have a prioritization for those fundings, you have to select 5. So the 5 that we're selecting for this document with the implementation plans. So number 1 would be create or allow for and reduce regulations related to internal or detached accessory dwelling units in residential zones. We already do that. We were one of the first communities to do accessory apartments. That's kind of a freebie. The state's mandating it anyways that we require internal accessory dwelling units. So they're already kind of giving us 1. So a couple things I added to our implementation plan is that we really don't know how many we have. We have 243 legal ones. We probably have double that with illegal ones. So what we want to do is try to work on that in next year, is to survey our residents and find out how many we actually have, so we can create a good baseline to report to the state. I don't know how people will fill about saying, I've got, they have an accessory apartment that may not be legal, but we'll try and figure out how many we have. The other one is to work with our legal department to see if we can come up with any type of hold harmless or amnesty program to try and get a better number to know how many units we have. We want to continue to promote this in our journal, on our newsletter, on Facebook, saying, hey, Lindon's supportive of doing accessory apartments. Here's how you do it legally, and so trying to really promote that program. We approve about 7 to 8 accessory apartments each year. So any questions on that first strategy? Okay, second one.
Mike,
Yeah.
I said this sort of jokingly to you the other day, but the membership clerks in the local wards would be able to tell you that number
They would.
very quickly. And
Yeah.
I know it's weird to have a sort of partnership with them, but if we really wanted that information, that could be had very quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know how you would do that, but that's how you could get that information.
Sounds like a privacy violation.
You know what?
Perhaps.
In fact,
It's almost like
Some
some people
wards-
aren't gonna tell you because
some
they're
wards
like
have
tired of.
taken it off just because of the emergency preparedness stuff,
Yeah.
knowing that information gets to the city and they don't. A lot of people don't think the city needs to know their business.
And
Government
I
knows-
know what you're saying.
I'm all for keeping the city out of our business, or government out of our business specifically. But we just talk about this number, and it's like, oh, how do we get this number? It's so hard to get. Well, there's.
Yeah. We'll do our best. We just
I
want to.
think, like you said, with friendly Facebook education through the Lindon.org and stuff, that there's not gonna be anything punitive, that now you can do it without doing like Mike Marchbanks did for 20 years, paying double utilities and all that stuff, that don't go on anymore.
And Steve Johnson paid extra impact fees.
And utilities.
To be clear, I was suggesting just a number, not saying
Oh, no,
sister
I get it.
so-and-so
You know
has, or
what?
brother so-and-so
But you'd
has.
still have to do it
It's a
so
number.
that nobody knew that you did it.
We'll find a good way to.
If there was a neighborhood chair or something.
You know what, I know what you're saying, and that would probably work, to just put a number on it.
I'm not saying put names with it.
Don't
I'm
identify
saying
any names, but even,
statistical data.
yeah.
So the second one,
At
so
least
last
know
year,
what
the state
best guess is.
prohibited the city from requiring impact fees for internal accessory dwelling units. One of the strategies now is to eliminate impact fees for any accessory dwelling unit that is not an internal accessory dwelling unit. So we would eliminate the public safety and parks impact fee for detached accessory apartments. So that's another low-hanging fruit strategy. Any questions on number 2? Okay, number 3, so demonstrate utilization of a moderate income housing set aside from a community and reinvestment agency, redevelopment agency, or community development renewal agency to create or subsidize moderate income housing. So we have 2 basically RDA areas. One is 700 North. We have a new one, what we just created for the new Kia dealership that's gonna go next to Home Depot. We have to set aside 5% of the budget for the 700 North area and 10% of the budget for the Kia dealership area. And so the plan would be to use that funding to help offset costs for moderate income housing, either in 700 North or use mainly in 700 North. So that would be another strategy. We already have to use that money for housing. So we're just basically saying, yeah, we will use it for housing. So, and we're actually gonna utilize it. The one thing that's hard is we don't have any proposals. And so this implementation plan's a little general and saying we will work with a developer when they come in. And so like one thing we could also do is, as Ivory's now putting their multifamily plan together, we could work with them on, maybe a proposal that they dedicate a few units to affordable housing in that 700 North zone as well. So, okay, strategy number 4, reduce, waive, or eliminate impact fees related to moderate income housing. So if someone is going to do moderate income housing, we would eliminate, we would reduce those impact fees. So the implementation plan is to work with the city council in 2023, saying, evaluating with them which ones we would reduce. And so it doesn't have to, we don't have to eliminate them. It says we could, but we don't have to. So I could see our council reducing some of those impact fees. So, and then finally, implement zoning incentives for moderate income units in new developments. So this would be something we would study with the Planning Commission and City Council in 2023 and 2024 to, what are some incentives? So should we reduce our parking incentive, or parking? So instead of 2 units, 2 stalls per unit, maybe we go to 1.75 or something like that for those moderate income units. And then I'd also like to evaluate, I've been studying some density incentives. So let's say you provide 5 units, you get a density incentive of 5%, or whatever. 10 units, you get one extra 10% incentive or something for a density incentive. We'll work that out. So we don't have to commit to that right now. We're just saying we'll work on different incentives for moderate income housing.
That's the one where you would say you can get a little more density if you set aside a couple of the units for affordable housing. Right?
I've seen a few scales where it's like, you get a 5% and 10% for dedicating so many units. So you get a 5% increase in density or a 10%. So I've seen some different scales as I've researched that last week.
But how does that remain affordable?
Because they have to do a deed restriction.
So be a deed restriction.
So they'll have to set aside, let's say out of Ivory Homes, they had 380 units. They put a deed restriction that they always had to have 5 units. Doesn't always have to be the same unit, but 5 units always have to be deed restricted. So those are the.
Just refresh our memories. We're doing all these, jumping through all these hoops and everything to meet the state's requirements or federal requirements?
State requirements. So they came up with
Just hypothetical.
Yeah.
What if we were to say, thanks, but no thanks, we're not going to do it?
Then they can prohibit us from getting any specific state road funds.
And that's pretty big to the city.
That is big, yeah.
So they're blackmailing us.
Yeah, it's leverage.
They're mandating it, yes.
Yeah. It's just, I just.
We don't like it. It's called overreach. It's overreach.
I'm not against moderate income housing, but how do you try to, it's like taking something and trying to make it work. I mean, you've got property in Lindon that's $300,000 to $350,000 a building lot. And you're saying, okay, how are we gonna make this work for moderate income housing? It just seems like the wrong approach.
Well, we make it work by saying, hey, you can do an accessory apartment. So there's number one.
Right, I understand
Yeah.
that, but you take a $350,000, I mean, at some point, we're trying to make it work. So what you end up doing is taking a lot that you would normally build a $800,000 home on and trying to figure out, how am I gonna put a $350,000 house on that lot that's $350,000?
So I think
that would not be affordable.
I think the good thing we do with our strategies is we're not saying that. We're saying, hey, put an accessory apartment in. We'll waive your impact fees. We're gonna look in our 700 North zone and apply some RDA funds down there.
Yeah.
We're
In the real world, moderate income housing goes where the land is cheaper.
I not necessarily.
That's why you see it out in Saratoga Springs and Eagle Mountain.
I've seen some very expensive projects go around transit stations. I've worked with Cowboy Partners and Give Development. They're kind of the two big affordable housing people, and they've put in multi-million-dollar projects next to transit. That's really where you see a lot of your more affordable housing going in next to transit. The other thing is, I think the reason why the legislature has required this, because there's municipalities that have just said, we're not doing anything. And so they're saying everybody's got to take a load, you know, and so everybody's got to do something. So,
Not everybody gets to live in Lindon. Not everybody gets to live in Highland. Not, I mean,
that's why that's why the strategies will be
Not
different.
everybody gets to live in Martha's Vineyard.
that's right. I mean,
In South Salt Lake, where I came from,
I can't.
you know, before my previous job,
You're
they'll
not crooked
they'll base
enough.
their strategies off density, right? Where we're basing ours more off accessory apartments and impact fees, and so.
I don't think there's anybody more fed up than him. I mean, both of them have been working on this for.
Oh, I was stressed out as can be last week,
Months.
trying to finish up this report at 5 o'clock on
No,
Friday. I forgot to email you the meeting minutes,
If
so.
it isn't this, it's gonna be something else they're gonna hold a gun to your head on. I mean, when do you just say,
forget it.
I wrote this 3 years ago, and I took months writing this 3 years ago, and I spent the last 2 weeks rewriting it, so, yeah.
The first time I felt that this was going on, and then you may have the same thing, is over the ADA experiment.
That's right.
how's that work, yeah. But this is worse, almost, to me.
The one thing I think that's good, the state realized, remember last time how they said, you've got this gap analysis, you're missing 35 units in the 80%, 100 in the 50%. So it was funny, they came back and said, oh, our numbers were all wrong, our formulas were wrong, sorry.
Interesting.
Yeah, so now they want us to do that. So they want us to try and do, you know, put those numbers together.
Hey, we can
And
be
so-
just as wrong as they were
Yeah,
in the other direction,
That's right.
can't we?
Oh, yeah, we're covered.
so I think the strategies we've come up with are good for Lindon City. They're not, you know, they'll work in the 700 North area or helping with accessory apartments. You know, it's something we've you know, we're probably heading in this direction anyways with looking at some housing in 700 North a little bit, and so.
It's just, I'm all about a variety of housing choices, but what I don't like is being bossed around, you know? And it's okay to push back on that
Yeah.
a little bit too, so they don't feel like, oh, everyone's gonna roll over when we roll this out to them and tell them they have to do it. You know, it's okay to push back. Otherwise, they continue to reach and force and force.
Or you become independent of the money that the state and the federal government gives you. And so you can be sovereign.
That's true.
But in
And
your
do what you wanna do.
position, I understand, you are under so much pressure to not lose the funds.
Well, by who?
From the state,
No.
no.
Who's giving you the pressure? The city council?
I'm not getting pressure, I'm telling you, I'm giving you the policy requirements. And
It starts coming from the citizens.
And they can't,
If we
Like
just
over
said-
in Pleasant Grove, when their roads go to hell and
so the
wondering
work
why they're
meeting,
not being fixed.
the work meeting we had with the council, they said, go after 5 strategies. You know, pick the best ones for Lindon and
Well,
let's move
You
forward.
know, it's the same thing as the water. If we don't get these meters in now, we're gonna lose these funds.
See, and that's,
It's just one thing after another.
yeah, it's always dangling the carrot. And we have to be careful of that, and that's why it's important to be fiscally sound, so we don't have to roll over and get every dime.
Well, the best thing you can do is, you know, talk to your local legislators and say, hey,
Yeah.
this is the issues I see.
I'm not sure that has any,
You could try.
sometimes you just kinda need to say, okay, we don't need your
Well,
road
Mike,
funds, we'll
just
increase
one
taxes."
comment on that.
Got a comment?
Yeah, you know, with this group, the general plan, group of citizens from the community, all over the community, this plan was reviewed really carefully with them also. And these are the 5 strategies that they also felt best about. So isn't that correct, Mike?
Yeah, they were actually a little more progressive. One of the their top strategies were to study density and, or possibly proactively rezone properties for multifamily. We took a step back a little bit from that, but the resident committee was actually a little more progressive.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah, I think that's important to realize that these aren't just 5 things that staff has come up with. This is from I don't know how many's on that committee, 25, 30 people from all areas of the community of Lindon. And these are the things, the 5 that they felt best about. So, I mean, it probably is government overreach or whatever, but in trying to come to compliance, it's a good representation of the citizens of Lindon and what their desires are.
No, we're not,
Anyway.
I think the 5 strategies are fine. We're just talking in general at the overall frustration and calling it out. That's all. Good job, Mike.
So as I went through this again today, I found few technical issues, few misspelled words, a couple sentences I forgot to strike out. So as you make your motion, and if you recommend approval tonight, just make the motion that, staff reviews any technical wording and grammar issues on that.
Yeah.
Well, I think it makes sense to have our elected officials who are ultimately responsible through the ballot box to us make the decision of whether or not we feel like we should get government funds or not. That they recommended to you that you do this for now. So, well, I would ask for any public comment because we have a public hearing open. Is there any public comment? Okay.
I move to close the public hearing.
We have a motion to close the
Okay.
public hearing.
I second that motion.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting was unanimous on that. Any further discussion by the council or the commission before we make a motion? Hearing no other calls for discussion, is there someone that would like to make a motion?
Let's see.
And I apologize about the miswording in the motion. It was 5 o'clock on Friday, so
Yeah, right.
What miswording?
a lot of twos and,
General.
yeah,
Approve.
You mean in item 7, the motion that we're talking?
yeah.
I move to recommend to approve, right?
Denies spelled wrong.
Yeah.
There's a few spelling errors in there.
Okay. But so you're saying the motion should say,
I move to recommend approval of ordinance 22-10-0
with some
to
minor
the city council with
grammatical,
technical changes.
technical changes.
Technical and grammar changes to the city council.
I can try to make that motion, and you can correct me if I don't get it correct. Is that okay with you?
Yep.
Steve?
Just a minute, Sharon.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize Mike on the massive amounts of work he's put into writing this document. And also the Citizens Committee that also worked through it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been an enormous job for him to put it together in a way that might be approved by the state. So just throwing that in.
And I'm gonna
Because
throw in,
I've
if I
sat
have to
on
do
the
this
citizens-
again, I'm paying Zions Bank to do it. So
Yeah.
that's what most cities do. They
they
pay
have-
$10,000 to
they
Zions
outsource
Bank
it.
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's done a terrific job on putting it together for us, but also for this Citizens Committee that's been working on it also. So just
Yeah.
like to commend him for that.
I don't know if you can make that part of the motion, though. The kudos we're giving outside the motion.
Yeah.
It's like he's turning in his semester-long project. hoping to get an A+ with a red marker on it or something.
I'll be fine with a C+, but
I'm passing. is what- All right, I move to recommend approval of ordinance amendment 2022-10-02 City Council, right? With some additional grammatical and technical changes as needed.
We have
I second that motion.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carried unanimously. Okay, I think that ends our regular business on our agenda. So the next item on our agenda be any items from the commissioners. Anything that any of the commissioners would like to bring up?
Well, I'm not sure what office space really brings to this 700 North development. In other words, if you think about the utility or the benefit to the average Lindon citizen, having and I don't have a problem with it, but having an 80-foot, tall building filled with just people coming to work from 9 to 5 every day, it doesn't really benefit them. But I do see it as something that the real estate agent, Mike Cootley, can then talk to other potential buyers and developers of things that would benefit us and say, hey, it's almost like an anchor tenant or something. But it also just seems that it's just, we have these ordinances in place and then people come to us and want to change them all the time.
Yeah.
And I really don't have a problem with that because I think things make sense and sometimes it doesn't fit the orders, it doesn't fit in the box, but.
Well, the economy changes, and the needs change,
But I just don't know what that.
But what if you were working in that office building and you lived in Lindon? Wow, all of a sudden maybe you can ride your bike to work, or it's a lot closer. Your commute is less. I mean, that could be a benefit, but to someone who lives in Lindon that's now going to work right
We want
here.
this to be like a gathering place, and we want to
Well, I
have
think that will come.
restaurants and things like that. And I think that you do have to have bodies.
Yeah.
Whether it's in housing or office buildings.
Yeah.
But I just don't think it does a whole, so in other words, we're all worried about the shape that this is gonna take, and it's kind of off to a boring start, to be honest with you, because it's just an office building.
Yeah.
Well, but some of the adjacent ideas they have next to that building, I think it'll be fine, and I think if we're too myopic on, it's gotta be tax revenue, it's gotta be this, I mean, we're gonna miss some opportunities.
Yeah, but we had this discussion just 5 minutes ago. You got to have tax revenues in order to maybe get away from taking funding from the state and taking funding from the federal government. We've got to generate internally money to be self-sufficient and sovereign. And so tax revenues down in that area certainly need to be at
Or
the
spend
forefront.
less money,
What's that?
or spend less money. Don't
Well,
spend as
you
much.
can raise income or spend less money. I think it's twofold, and you can do both for sure, but.
Well, one thing is, we hopefully it won't go all that way. But if you get a few of those office buildings, the commercial will come.
Yeah.
I mean, to support who works in those buildings. You can see it along Pleasant Grove right there.
The retail will come.
The retail has come right there at that intersection quite a lot.
Well, restaurants are retail.
Mhm.
Is there a lot of retail there? I don't know if there's a lot of retail.
Restaurants are tax revenue.
No, I know they are.
No, what
They're
I'm
one of the
saying is
better components of retail, actually, is
You
for
look
us.
at, right there by, what is it, Central Bank and Trust?
Yeah, Pleasant Grove
Yeah.
Boulevard.
That whole area has got a lot of retail there
Yeah.
now. So, it will come, but we just, we don't want it to be all office buildings.
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't
That's,
think it
yeah,
would
that's
be.
my point. I
That's your-
just
Yeah.
don't we want it to be a place to gather and a venue and,
Whether it'll be a regional destination shopping center, I don't know. We'll have to-
Probably not with
Probably not.
with the deep parcel going away.
Yeah.
Or whether it's feasible.
Yeah. My only question, I'm trying to picture those different buildings by each other. a gym and then a 5-story building and then a 2-story,
Or a 3-story building.
a 3-story building. But that's my only thing is how will it look, if we're,
And it's hard when you've got a linear corridor,
Yeah.
right? You don't have this chunk of square property like, a normal commercial center, like a Farmington Station or, or even like, where a Costco is or something that gets that commercial, integrates around it. It's hard when you've got 500 feet in a straight line.
yeah, it is, so.
Yeah.
It limits the creativity.
So. Okay, is there anything else that the commissioners would like to bring up?
We have two items real
And
quick.
so, the planning director
Mike,
report.
really?
Sorry. So you remember last year how you had to complete that training before the end of the year, the 4 hours of training? So you still have to do that again this year. You get, if you attend 12 meetings, you get 1 hour of training. You have to do a powers and duties training. I'll send that link out again. I'm the Utah chapter of the American Planning Association. I'm the Utah County rep. And so last year, Spanish Fork, Payson, Springville all did a planning commission dinner and had a speaker come, and they got a lot of their hours that way. Would you be interested if I tried to do something with maybe Orem and Lehigh? Those
Yeah,
have been
totally.
the ones that have shown the most interest right now, and do a
But
dinner
better
with,
be an exciting speaker, I think.
promise that it's land use. So,
That's what I'm saying.
so, but you might get a free dinner out of it, and
As long
you're,
as it's good food, we'll be okay.
okay. I'm working with them on scheduling
Would that be like October or,
October, November, or
Okay.
something like that, probably October.
yeah?
I think Payson's doing theirs September, early September this year. So I'll work out a date with those two communities. So, okay.
Here's my 20 hours.
Oh, good. Screenshot that for me.
Okay.
And if you do real estate, that counts too as part
Like
of
your
your hours.
CE?
Your CE.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Does it all have to be in the same year?
yes.
It's like real estate's every 2 years.
Yeah, it would have to be every year. So, if you do if you attend the 12 meetings, you have to watch the Power and Duties course, and then you give me 2 hours of something else.
Now, when's the APA planning?
Oh, and that counts as well.
Yeah, right. When is that?
That's in October. If you want to attend that,
Yeah.
it's, I need to know pretty quick. I can get you the dates again.
Yeah, last year they did up in West Valley,
Yeah,
same
this year it's
location?
in Lehigh.
Oh, good.
So,
I think that's 8th and 9th,
you're October 8th and 9th?
September 8th and 9th.
Oh, September 8th and 9th.
It's like the Thursday and Friday off.
It is.
Labor Day?
weekend.
Oh, darn, I'm gonna be
Yeah.
out of town.
So even if you showed up for 2 or 3 hours, you'd get your hours.
So I'm gonna have to do something that's a mandatory one, or is this?
You
Powers and
will have to
duties.
do the powers and
Yeah.
duties one.
Okay.
I'll
Yeah.
send that link out to you.
Okay.
Okay, then Mary's got something really quick.
I promise it will be quick. I wanted to get your, like, a feel or kind of your appetite on possible ordinance amendment on the projections into yards ordinance. Right now, this is the only ordinance that covers all residential areas in the city, including Anderson Farms, and that's where I'm running into a problem with building permits. So you can see it says the following may project into a front, side, or rear yard above or below grade not more than 4 feet as long as they are uncovered, unenclosed stairways, balconies, landings, and fire escapes. So the problem is, this ordinance was written for the residential zones that kind of surround us here, the R120, R112, where the minimum side yard setback is 10 feet. So if you had like a basement walkout stairway or a balcony encroaching into that 10 feet, then you'd still have 6 feet between the edge of that stairway and the property line of your neighbor. And then your neighbor would have another 10 feet or 6 feet, depending on what they have going on. However, in Anderson Farms, they have setbacks that are about 6 feet. And so if you encroach into that, then you only have 2 feet left between the edge of your stairway or balcony and your neighbor's property line. So for example, this one was approved just last year. Oh, yeah, I'll zoom in. Oh, it might be too much. Okay, so this one was approved just last year. They have a 6-foot setback, and this basement walkout stairway encroached 4 feet into the side yard, and so left 2 feet in between that edge of the stairway and the property line. And the guy who lives here was not happy about it at all. But there's nothing we could have done because there's no ordinance in place to address projections into side yards in the Anderson Farms area where they have reduced setbacks. And then this one was approved just last week. It's another basement walkout stairway in the side yard. It encroaches about 3 feet into the 6-foot setback, leaving 3 feet in between the stairway and the property line. And that's not including the concrete at the top of the stairway, the landing at the top of the stairway. That encroached a little bit more as well. So it's just this ordinance amendment, it would focus primarily on just houses that, or side yards that are less than 10 feet. So it wouldn't be specifically Anderson Farms, it would be just side yards that are less than 10 feet. I think if an Anderson Farm home had a side yard of 10 feet, then that would be just fine to have it encroach 4 feet. Yeah, but this would kind of help, like the neighbor right here is gonna have a stairway that goes down, 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 you know, just a little, just 3 feet away from their property. If they have kids, what if, you know, something happens? Also, another possible side effect of an ordinance amendment like this could be less illegal apartments in Anderson Farms. Whenever I get a basement walkout permit for Anderson Farms, like I can't say no because it meets the ordinance, and I tell them you can't have a basement apartment here, but I mean, there's not really much I can do above that. Of course, people with an ordinance amendment for the side yard setback, they'd still be able to put in basement walkouts in their backyard.
Right.
But it's generally when you do an apartment, you want to have a stairway in the, you know, side yard so people can access it from the street because that's where they're parking, you know. So yeah, that's.
The ordinance amendment, I couldn't quite read it.
Yeah, I haven't put it together. I just highlighted the actual ordinance. So I was wondering if you wanted to I came up with 2 different options. Maybe either just completely like don't allow any encroachment into the side yard with like a stairway, stairway, balcony, landing, fire escape. When the side yard setback is less than 10 feet.
Let me ask you, the one that you said the man next door was not happy.
Yeah.
Did they have a cover over the stairway?
I don't think so. No. You're not allowed to have a cover over the stairway. It has to be unenclosed. So
But he had a fence.
they don't have a fence there.
And that's why it feels so intrusive.
Yeah.
There is no fence, so it's feeling like you almost got something you gotta be careful not to step in a stairwell. I think we need to fix it for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and I could do something where you know, people with a side yard setback that's less than 10 feet, they can encroach like 2 feet into it, so that leaves 4 feet in between like the side of the structure or whatever and the property line. But I could just say nothing can go within a side yard setback that is less than 10
If
feet.
it was the side of the stairwell, it's different than if it's the egress to the stairwell.
Yeah.
So maybe that could be
Well,
thought about.
on a 0 lot line, which really those are, and no fences, I don't know, you know, and I'm usually the most liberal one of the bunch in these kind of things, but I almost feel like we probably ought not allow them in a 0 lot line scenario. Force them to go to their backyard, to us not encroaching on their neighbor.
Go to their backyard.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel similar, although I do feel like if I'm a homeowner in a 0 lot line and I want access to my basement, for me,
Yeah.
I want it. You don't want to have it prevented.
Yeah, but you
if they
could
can
still
put
do it
in
in
the
your,
backyard-
yeah, they can still put it in their backyard. And if it's for you, you don't really care, really, do you, if it's in
No.
the back or the side?
But I might want to put a sidewalk to go to the backyard.
You can
See,
do,
sidewalks would
you
be
can
okay
do,
on the
you can
whole-
pave your side
Yeah.
yard as much as you'd
You
like.
could pave the whole 5 foot,
Yeah.
so to me,
I think it needs to be looked at.
Okay, sounds good.
So on both of those projects, they would have had to get the approval we talked about earlier from the utility companies,
Uh-huh,
right?
yeah.
Can you do pavement in that?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
You'd
can,
have to have approval.
no,
To be
not
paved?
really.
it
it's
just
like
has to be a
landscape.
structure.
Pavement's considered almost like landscape, that if the utility company had something there and they really need to come tear it up, they're willing to put it back the way they found it.
Same with like the
Keeps you from
fences
building
question.
I did several subdivisions on the Metropolitan Pipeline in Salt Lake, and they used to let us put the road right over the top of it. Then they got to the point where they really didn't want the road, but I was able to let people build a tennis court on top of it, or whatever, and
As
so,
long as they knew that, hey, we have access here.
Yeah.
We're not going to pay to replace your tennis court.
well,
They did.
that's debatable.
This other one that's up here, boy, they are so protective.
Well, now it's gotten really,
I mean, the.
yeah, it's
my-
gotten really stringent
Yeah,
now.
my friend's tried to put up a little bit of
Yeah.
retaining thing that he's trying to do, and
Yeah,
they put a stop to it.
like I say, 25 years ago, you could put a road right on top of it.
We've got 5 acres up here, and that easement runs through it, and they won't let you do anything.
Yeah,
I mean, you
anymore.
can't plant anything, you can't even put a movable shed on it.
Yeah.
Did you get what you needed from us, Mary?
Yes, thank you so
I'll
much.
show you some subdivisions. all in.
Anything else from the
You see these
Mike or
giant
Mary?
Front yards
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
in that 75-foot
I
easement.
second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.
Not opposed, Sharon.
Sharon wants to stay on.
Well,
We
I
bought this 5
favorite being
acres for like 13
over.
grand.
Oh, uh-huh. Hey, is the taxes staying down on it?